we chatted a little bit before this event, and one of the things you brought up was kind of determining, whether it's the payer or the provider who's in charge of
Yep.
taking the lead in care coordination and engagement. I wanted to hear you kind of expand on that a little bit more, and even some of the lines of communication that you need after you've established whose responsibility it is to have care coordination.
Yeah, it's something we work on a lot. We've got, I think, 80 different value-based contracts today. So we have a lot of payer partners, and we are doing a lot of stuff. They're doing a lot of stuff, and certainly it leads to duplicate efforts or just wasted sometimes effort on each of our behalf. I think, sort of in an ideal scenario, with the payer and the provider group together, setting expectations of roles and responsibilities from the start. Sometimes we talk about this sort of you do, we do, what are all the things we could do and who's going to get it done, and really trying to establish that from the start. Because I think that creates the accountability down the way in terms of, okay, the provider is responsible for this, so let's see what that provider is up to. How many patients have you engaged? What has been your success? What type of clinical outcomes have you been seeing? And the reverse, if it's the payer is responsible, then how many patients have you engaged? What's their success rate? And a lot of that tends to be very opaque, where you don't really have a lot of visibility into the other side. As a provider group, it's very, very hard for me. We've tried to know, though, okay, how many of our patients have actually interacted with those payer programs? So I think that roles and responsibilities and transparency over who's doing what is really important. I think the second problem is how are we funding those efforts? And it might be the payer because of funding through premium from the employer or the patient themselves. Or if we've identified opportunities where the provider should be responsible for roles and responsibilities, there should be some sort of funding around that, such as a care management fee or something to really compensate for that service. And then I think the last part really has to do with data, where there really has to be very strong data back and forth. It's not one side or the other, but we have to be looking at the same data. And so as a provider group, I want to be able to see the claims history of my patients. I want to understand who is attributed and how that evolves over time. I want to understand care gaps that might be closed outside of our clinical record and outside of our medical group. I want to really have a full picture that the payer sees of this patient. And on the flip side, the payer probably wants to see our full picture. We've got a very rich clinical record because we're interacting with patients on a day-to-day basis. So can we send over supplemental file feeds for the payer to understand what we're doing? Again, the point being, hey, have strong transparency of roles and responsibilities, and then ongoing interaction and data for what is going on and how can we improve and work together going forward.